The chains felt heavy on Jake Harrison's wrists as he stood before the biggest courtroom he had ever seen. The room was so large that he could barely see the walls. Thousands of alien creatures sat in the seats around him, all watching him like he was some kind of dangerous animal in a zoo. Jake was a commander in the Earth Space Navy, but today he felt very small. He was here to speak for all humans everywhere. The weight of that job made his stomach twist with worry. High above him sat 12 giant aliens on golden thrones. These were the rulers of the Galactic Council. They controlled everything in this part of space. Every planet, every trade route, every law came from them, and today they were going to decide what happened to the human race. The biggest alien was called High Arbiter Veltar. His body looked like it was made of blue crystal that sparkled in the light. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the room, like thunder. The species called humans have shown they cannot live with other peaceful races, Veltar said. His words made Jake's blood run cold. You fight too much. You take what you want by force. You do not follow the rules that keep peace in our galaxy. Jake tried to stay calm, but his heart was beating fast. He had known this day might come. For 20 years, humans had been trying to fit in with the other alien races. They had tried to follow the Council's rules, but humans were different. They were younger, more aggressive, and they did not like being told what to do. Ambassador Lisa Carter stood up from her seat near Jake. She was Earth's best diplomat, a small woman with gray hair and smart eyes. She had spent years trying to make peace with the aliens. We have given much to the galaxy, Lisa said, her voice clear and strong. Human scientists have made new medicines. Human engineers have built better ships. Human explorers have found new worlds. Surely these good things matter more than our mistakes. But Veltar raised one of his crystal hands. Silence, he commanded. We have made our choice. All humans will leave their colonies. Your whole species will be moved to one world. The room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own breathing. He knew what was coming next, but he still hoped he was wrong. You will be taken to the world you call Kepler 442c, Veltar continued. We call it Tartarus Prime. Jake's heart stopped. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Tartarus Prime. It was a death world. The gravity was 3 times stronger than Earth. The air was poison. The ground shook with earthquakes every day. Huge monsters lived there that could tear a man apart with their bare claws. It was where the Council sent the worst criminals to die. Captain Ryan Brooks jumped up from his seat. Ryan was Jake's friend and the head of Earth's military forces. His face was red with anger. You are killing us all, Ryan shouted. You know no one can live on that world. This is not justice, this is murder. Veltar's crystal body flashed brighter. That is the point, he said with no emotion in his voice. Your species is too dangerous to live. We give you a chance to prove you can survive and change. If you cannot, then nature will solve our problem for us. Jake felt sick. Around the room, other aliens were nodding their heads in agreement. They all wanted humans gone. They all thought humans were nothing but trouble. In the seats behind Jake, he could see other humans watching. These were the leaders from all the human colonies. Scientists, soldiers, farmers, teachers. All of them had families. All of them had children. And now they were all going to die on a world that killed everything. Lisa tried one more time. Please, she said, give us another chance. Let us prove we can change. We can be better. But Veltar was done talking. The ships will come in 60 days, he said. Every human will be loaded onto them. You will go to Tartarus Prime. What happens after that is up to you. The trial was over. Guards grabbed Jake and the other humans and led them away. As they walked through the halls of the great building, Jake could hear aliens talking excitedly. They were happy. They thought their problem was solved, but Jake was not thinking about dying. He was thinking about surviving. Humans had lived through ice ages and plagues and wars. They had climbed the highest mountains and swum the deepest oceans. They had built cities and spaceships and traveled to the stars. Maybe the aliens were right. Maybe humans were too aggressive and too stubborn. But those same traits had kept humanity alive for thousands of years. And Jake had a feeling they would need those traits more than ever on Tartarus Prime. The great ships came exactly 60 days later. They were massive metal boxes with no windows and no comfort. The aliens loaded humans onto them like cattle. 400 billion people from hundreds of worlds, all crammed into ships that smelled like fear and desperation. 10-year-old Amy Turner pressed her face against one of the few small windows as Earth got smaller and smaller behind them. She was crying, but she was also angry. The aliens had taken away her home, her friends, her whole life. But Amy was smart for her age. She was already thinking about what came next. Dr. Nathan Phillips spent the long trip studying everything he could find about Tartarus Prime. He was a scientist who studied alien life. What he learned made him scared, but it also made him think. Every world had secrets. Every planet had ways to survive if you were smart enough to find them. The trip took 18 long months. People got sick. Some died. Others went crazy from being locked up for so long. But most of them just waited and planned and got ready for whatever was waiting for them. When the ships finally landed on Tartarus Prime, the doors opened to reveal a world that looked like hell itself. The sky was red. The air burned their lungs. The ground shook under their feet. And in the distance they could hear the roars of things that wanted to eat them. Jake stepped off the ship and felt the heavy gravity trying to crush him to the ground. Around him, thousands of other humans were doing the same thing. Many of them were crying. Some were praying. Others were just staring at the nightmare world they now called home. But Jake smiled. It was a grim smile, full of determination and anger. The aliens thought they had won. They thought they had gotten rid of their human problem. They were wrong. They had not killed humanity. They had just made it angry, and angry humans were the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The ground shook again as Jake Harrison tried to set up the emergency shelter. This was the 5th earthquake in 2 hours, and each one was getting stronger. Around him, other humans struggled with the same task. The heavy gravity made everything 3 times harder than it should be. "Watch out!" someone screamed. Jake looked up to see a huge crack opening in the ground just 20 feet away. Steam and poisonous gas shot up from the crack like a deadly fountain. 3 people who had been standing there moments before were now gone, swallowed by the hungry earth. This was their 3rd day on Tartarus Prime, and 50,000 humans were already dead. Colony Commander Helen Price stood on a small hill, looking down at the chaos below. She was a tough woman who had led colonies on 6 different worlds, but she had never seen anything like this. Every few minutes, another emergency flare went up into the red sky, marking another disaster. "We need to move everyone to the valley," she told her assistant, a young man named Tony Webb. "The ground seems more stable there." Tony nodded, but he looked worried. "Commander, the scouts say there are tracks in that valley, big ones, something lives there." Helen sighed. Everything on this world wanted to kill them. The air, the ground, the weather, and now the animals too. But they needed stable ground more than they needed safety from unknown creatures. "Send word to all groups," she ordered. "We move to the valley in 2 hours." Dr. Nathan Phillips was busy in his makeshift laboratory, studying samples of everything he could find. The plants here were unlike anything he had ever seen. They grew in the poisonous soil and seemed to actually feed on the toxic gases in the air. "This is incredible," he said to his assistant, Dr. Jennifer Clark. "These plants are not just surviving the poison. They are using it to grow stronger." Jennifer looked tired. Like everyone else, she had not slept well since arriving. The constant earthquakes and the howling of unknown creatures made sleep almost impossible. "Can we eat them?" she asked. That was the question everyone was asking. The food they had brought would not last long, and they needed to find new sources quickly. Nathan held up a piece of strange blue root. "Not yet, but maybe we can learn from them. If these plants can process the toxins, maybe we can too." The move to the valley started at noon. Thousands of humans carried their few belongings across the shaking ground. Children cried from the heavy gravity. Older people struggled to walk. Everyone moved slowly, like they were walking through thick mud. Amy Turner walked with her parents, carrying her little brother on her back. Even though she was only 10 years old, she was getting stronger each day. The heavy gravity was hard, but her muscles were adapting faster than most adults. "Look at those mountains," her father said, pointing to the jagged peaks in the distance. "They look like broken teeth." Amy stared at the mountains and felt something strange. Instead of fear, she felt excited. This world was trying to kill them, but it was also making them stronger. She could feel it happening in her own body. The valley looked peaceful when they first arrived. Green grass grew near a stream of clear water. For the first time since landing, people smiled. Children ran around, happy to have space to play. Paul Davis, the best engineer from the colony ships, started planning where to build their new homes. "We can use the local stone," he told Helen Price. "It looks strong enough to handle the earthquakes." But their peace did not last long. The attack came at sunset. The creatures appeared from nowhere, dropping out of the sky like living shadows. They were huge, the size of small aircraft, with wings that cut through the air like knives. Their claws looked like they were made of metal, and their eyes glowed red in the fading light. The razor wings had found them. The first one landed right in the middle of a group of families setting up camp. Its claws went through a man like he was made of paper. Then it grabbed a woman and flew away with her screams echoing across the valley. "Everyone to the center," Helen shouted. "Form defensive circles." But the humans had no weapons that could hurt these monsters. Their small guns bounced off the creatures' thick skin. Their knives broke on the metal-hard claws. Within minutes, dozens of people were dead or taken. Kevin Stone had been a military strategist back on Earth. He watched the attack with the cold eyes of a soldier, noting how the creatures moved, how they hunted, how they worked together. "They are smart," he told Ryan Brooks, who was trying to organize a defense. "Look how they coordinate. They are not just animals. They are pack hunters with intelligence." The attack lasted an hour. When it was over, 3,000 humans were dead, and the survivors were scattered across the valley in small, terrified groups. But something had changed in the survivors. The fear was still there, but so was anger. These creatures had killed their friends, their families, their children, and humans did not forget things like that. Over the next few weeks, Kevin Stone began organizing hunting parties. They studied the razor wings, learned their patterns, found their weaknesses. The creatures were strong and fast, but they were also predictable. The first successful hunt happened 3 weeks after the initial attack. Kevin led 20 volunteers armed with improvised spears and traps. They managed to kill one razor wing and wound 2 others. Maria Santos, a metallurgist from the mining colonies, examined the dead creature's claws. What she found changed everything. "This is not normal bone or keratin," she announced to the gathered survivors. "These claws are made of some kind of natural titanium alloy. If we can figure out how to work with it, we can make tools and weapons stronger than anything we brought from Earth." Dr. Phillips was equally excited about his plant research. He had finally found a way to process the toxic roots into something humans could eat. It tasted terrible, but it would keep them alive. More than that, he told Helen Price privately, "I think eating these plants is changing us. The people who have been eating them regularly are showing increased resistance to the poisonous air. Their bodies are adapting." Amy Turner was one of those people. She had been eating the processed plants since the 2nd week, and she could now breathe the outside air for short periods without getting sick. She was also getting stronger every day, able to lift things that grown men struggled with. The scattered survivor group slowly came back together. They built their first permanent settlement in a defensible position between 2 hills. They called it Haven, and it became the heart of human resistance against this deadly world. Paul Davis designed buildings that could flex with the earthquakes instead of breaking. Kevin Stone trained hunting parties that could take down razor wings in coordinated attacks. Maria Santos set up forges that could work the creature's claws into useful tools. And Dr. Phillips continued his research, discovering new ways for humans to not just survive on Tartarus Prime, but to thrive. 6 months. After landing, the humans were no longer just trying to stay alive. They were learning to fight back. They were adapting to their new world in ways that surprised even themselves. The aliens had sent them here to die, But humans were proving once again that they were very hard to kill. And every day, they were getting harder. 25 years had passed since the ships first landed on Tartarus Prime. The scared refugees who had stumbled off those transport vessels were gone. In their place stood something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. General Amy. Turner walked through the streets of New Terra, the largest human city on the planet. She was 35 years old now, but she looked like she could wrestle a bear and win. Her muscles were dense and strong from growing up in the heavy gravity. Her lungs could process the poisonous air that would kill a normal human in minutes. The city around her was incredible. Buildings made of processed razor-wing bone rose 50 stories into the red sky. They swayed with the earthquakes but never fell down. Streets were carved from the living rock of the planet, smooth and strong enough to last forever. Gardens grew everywhere, filled with plants that had been changed by human science to be both beautiful and useful. General, called Captain Danny Foster as he jogged up to her. Danny was one of the new generation, born on Tartarus Prime. He stood 7 feet tall and could move faster than any human from old Earth ever could. The deep mining teams have found something. Dr. Walsh wants to see you right away. Amy nodded and followed Danny through the city. As they walked, she saw children playing in the parks. These kids were amazing. They could jump 20 feet in the air like it was nothing. They could see clearly in the dim red light that came through the toxic atmosphere. They were what humans were becoming. Dr. Peter Walsh was waiting for them at the entrance to the deep mines. Peter was the son of one of the original colonists, and he had become their best scientist. His laboratory was built right into the mountain, protected by layers of processed razor-wing armor. "Amy, you need to see this," Peter said, his voice shaking with excitement. "We have found something that changes everything." They took an elevator deep into the mountain. The walls around them were covered with strange markings that glowed with their own light. Amy had seen these markings before, but never this many in one place. "We call it Tartarite," Peter explained as they walked through tunnels that humans had carved with their own hands. "It is a crystal that grows deep in the planet's core, but it is not just any crystal. Watch this." He led them to a huge cavern, filled with glowing blue crystals. The crystals were beautiful, but Amy could feel something else. The air around them seemed to buzz with energy. Peter picked up a small piece of the crystal and placed it in a metal device. "This piece is no bigger than my thumb," he said, "but the energy it contains could power our entire city for a year." Amy stared at the crystal. "How is that possible?" "We do not know yet," Peter admitted. "But that is not the amazing part. Kelly, show her." Chief Engineer Kelly Brown stepped forward. Kelly was a tough woman who had led every major construction project in New Terra. She was holding what looked like a normal human weapon, but Amy could see it had been changed somehow. "We learned how to work Tartarite into our tools and weapons," Kelly explained. "Watch what happens when I fire this at that rock wall." She pointed the weapon at a solid stone wall and pulled the trigger. A beam of blue light shot out and completely destroyed a section of wall 10 feet thick. The rock did not just break apart, it turned into dust. Amy felt her heart racing. "How much Tartarite do we have?" "The entire planet is full of it," Peter said with a huge grin. "There are veins of crystal running through every mountain, every valley. But there is a problem. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it gets." As if to prove his point, a deep roar echoed through the tunnels. It was not the sound of any creature they had fought before. This was something bigger, something that lived in the deep places where the crystals grew. "The deep crawlers," Kelly said quietly. "They are like nothing we have ever seen. Bigger than razor wings, armored like tanks, and they do not hunt alone. Every mining operation becomes a war." But Amy was already thinking like a general. "How many teams do we have working the deep mines?" 50, Peter replied. "Each team has 20 miners and 10 soldiers. But we lose people every week. The deep crawlers are getting smarter, more aggressive." Amy made her decision. "Double the teams, triple the soldiers, whatever these creatures are. We need that crystal more than we need safety." Over the next 5 years, the war for Tartarite became the defining struggle of human civilization. on Tartarus Prime. Deep beneath the surface, human soldiers fought running battles with creatures that looked like nightmares made real. The deep crawlers were 12 feet long, covered in natural armor harder than steel. They had too many legs, too many teeth, and eyes that glowed in the dark. Worst of all, they were smart. They set traps, worked in groups, and learned from every battle. But humans were learning too. Captain Roy Bennett led the first successful deep strike against a deep crawler nest. His team of enhanced soldiers moved through the tunnels like ghosts, using their improved vision and reflexes to hunt the hunters. The key is not to fight them on their terms, Roy explained to Amy after his team returned from a particularly dangerous mission. They expect us to be slow and weak like surface creatures, but we are not surface creatures anymore. We are something new. He was right. The humans who worked in the deep mines were changing even faster than those on the surface. The constant danger, the strange radiations from the crystals, the need to fight for their lives every day was making them into something beyond normal human limits. Amy saw the proof when she visited the mines herself. She watched human soldiers move through dark tunnels with perfect coordination. They could see in complete darkness. They could hear deep crawlers coming from hundreds of feet away. They could fight for hours without getting tired, and their weapons were becoming incredible. Kelly Brown had learned to forge Tartarite into metal, creating armor that could stop anything and weapons that could cut through solid rock. The mining teams looked like armored knights from ancient stories, but they moved with the speed and grace of dancers. The first real test of human strength came when a Galactic Council patrol ship entered the Tartarus system. The ship was called Zenith's Pride, and its mission was simple: confirm that all humans were dead and mark the system as cleared. Captain Dan Foster commanded the human response. His ship, the Retribution, was built entirely from materials found on Tartarus Prime. The hull was made from processed deep crawler armor. The weapons were powered by Tartarite crystals. The crew were all enhanced humans who had been born and raised on the Death World. The Council ship's captain was a proud alien named Sector. When he saw the human ship approaching, he was more annoyed than worried. He had expected to find floating wreckage and dead planets. Instead, he found a sleek vessel that moved like a living thing. Unknown ship, surrender immediately, Sector broadcast. This system is under Galactic Council quarantine. Dan Foster's reply was calm and polite. This is Captain Foster of the Tartarus Defense Force. You are in human space. Please state your business or leave. Sector laughed. The idea that humans could still be alive, much less claiming territory, was ridiculous. Humans are extinct, he replied. Surrender now or be destroyed. The battle that followed lasted exactly 47 seconds. The Council ship opened fire with weapons designed to crack planets. Beams of pure energy that could melt mountains struck the Retribution's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by Tartarite-enhanced defenses. The human ship's return fire was a single shot, a blue beam of concentrated energy that punched through the Council ship's shields, armor, and hull like they were made of paper. The Zenith's Pride exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire system. Dan Foster watched the explosion fade and felt no satisfaction. This was not victory. This was just the beginning. Word of the battle spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The impossible had happened. Humans were not only alive, they were stronger than anyone had imagined. The species that had been sent to die on a Hellworld had returned as something new, something dangerous. Amy Turner received reports from across human space. Scouts were returning from the edges of the system with news that made her smile grimly. Council ships were gathering. Fleets were being assembled. The galaxy was preparing for war. But Amy was not worried. 25 years on Tartarus Prime had taught humanity many things. They had learned to survive in hell. They had learned to fight monsters. They had learned to turn the impossible into reality. Now they would teach the galaxy what it meant to anger the species that death could not kill. 50 years had passed since humanity was banished to Tartarus Prime. The galaxy that had tried to forget about humans was about to remember them in the worst possible way. Admiral Tony Mitchell stood on the bridge of his flagship, Vengeance Born, watching the stars through the viewing window. His ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was built from tartarite-enhanced metals and powered by crystals that could burn for 1,000 years. The crew around him were all enhanced, humans, stronger and faster than their ancestors could have ever imagined. "Admiral," called his communications officer, Lieutenant Beth Cooper, "we are receiving reports from Scout Fleet 7. They have found something interesting." Tony turned from the window. Scout Fleet 7 was exploring systems near the old human colonies, gathering information about what had happened to their former homes. What they were finding was not pleasant. "Put it on the main screen," Tony ordered. The image that appeared showed a planet that had once been New California, a thriving human farming world. Now it was covered in factories and mining equipment. Alien creatures worked in the fields where human children had once played. The cities humans had built were gone, replaced by structures that looked like metal boxes. "The Council sold our worlds," Beth said quietly. "Everything we built, everyone we loved, they just gave it away to whoever wanted it." Tony felt the familiar anger burning in his chest. It was the same anger that lived in every human who had survived Tartarus Prime. The galaxy had not just exiled them, it had erased them, pretended they had never existed. "Contact Admiral Clark," Tony ordered. "Tell her to begin Operation Homecoming." 3 systems away, Admiral Sandra Clark received the message on her flagship, Iron Justice. Sandra was a veteran of the deep mine wars, a woman who had fought deep crawlers in tunnels so dark you could not see your own hand. Leading a fleet against alien ships was going to be much easier. Her target was Kepler Station, a massive mining facility built in what used to be human space. The station was defended by 37 council ships, each one larger than any vessel humans had possessed before their exile. The alien commanders were confident. They outnumbered the human fleet 3-1. They were about to learn that numbers did not always matter. "All ships attack formation," Sandra commanded. Her fleet of 12 vessels moved like a pack of hunting wolves. Each ship was crewed by enhanced humans who could react faster than any alien pilot. Each weapon was powered by tartarite crystals that made normal energy weapons look like toys. The battle began when the Council fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles flew toward the human ships. But the humans were no longer the clumsy fighters the aliens remembered. Their ships danced between the attacks like they were performing a deadly ballet. The human return fire was devastating. 12 ships destroyed 37 in less than 10 minutes. The mining station surrendered before Sandra's fleet could turn their weapons on it. But the real discovery came when human boarding parties searched the station's computer files. Dr. Rachel Davis, a scientist and granddaughter of the original, Engineer Paul Davis, found records that made her blood run cold. "Admiral," Rachel called over the radio from inside the station, "you need to see this. I have found the original Council plans for humanity." The files Rachel discovered told a story that was even worse than the humans had imagined. The Council had not just wanted to exile humanity. They had planned complete genocide. Tartarus Prime had been chosen specifically because no species in galactic history had ever survived there for more than 1 year. The plan had been simple. Send all humans to a world that would kill them quickly, then divide up human territory among the other Council species. They had even prepared celebration ceremonies for when the last human died. But the most shocking discovery was a note from High Arbiter Veltar himself. "The human plague will be extinct within 2 years," he had written. "Their aggressive nature and refusal to submit to proper authority makes them a threat to galactic peace. Better they should die on Tartarus Prime than spread their violence to civilized worlds." When Admiral Tony Mitchell read these files, he called an emergency meeting of all human fleet commanders. The meeting took place in space, with dozens of ships forming a protective circle around the command vessel. "They tried to commit genocide," Tony announced to the assembled commanders. "This was never about exile or punishment. They wanted us dead. All of us. Men, women, children. They wanted to wipe humanity from existence." General Chris Rogers, who had been leading ground operations to reclaim human archaeological sites, spoke up from his ship. "We found similar evidence on the colony worlds. Mass graves where they killed humans who resisted the evacuation. destroyed cities where they bombed human settlements that tried to hide. The revelation changed everything. This was no longer about reclaiming lost territory or seeking justice for past wrongs. This was about survival. The Council had tried to murder an entire species, and they would certainly try again if given the chance. But humanity was not the same species the Council had tried to destroy 50 years ago. The enhanced humans who had been forged in the hell of Tartarus Prime were stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than any military force in galactic history. Admiral Lisa Kane, commanding the Liberation Fleet in the Outer Rim territories, had already discovered this truth. Her mission was to free the slave colonies, worlds where the Council had conquered proud warrior species and turned them into obedient servants. When Lisa arrived at the planet Korthak, she found a civilization that had once been mighty conquerors. The Korthaki were 8-foot-tall warriors with natural armor and incredible strength. But decades of Council rule had broken their spirit. They worked in mines and factories, their weapons taken away, their warrior traditions forbidden. Lisa offered them something the Council never had: a choice. "We will give you weapons," she announced to the gathered Korthaki leaders. "We will teach you to fight again. In return, you help us remove the Council from power." The response was immediate. Within days, the Korthaki were attacking Council garrisons with fury that had been building for decades. Other species heard about the rebellion and began to rise up as well. The galaxy that the Council had controlled through fear and oppression suddenly became a war zone. But the real shock came when the freed species saw human soldiers in action. Lieutenant Kyle Murphy led a strike team that rescued Korthaki prisoners from a Council prison camp. The aliens watched in amazement as humans moved faster than their eyes could follow, lifted weights that should have been impossible, and fought with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. "What are you?" asked Warlord Ganthar, the leader of the Korthaki resistance. "You are human, but you are not like the humans we remember." Kyle smiled grimly. "We are what happens when you try to kill humans and fail. We are what your Council created when they sent us to hell." The rebellion spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been conquered and enslaved for centuries suddenly had hope again. They had weapons, they had allies, and most importantly, they had humans leading them. The Council tried to respond. They sent fleets to crush the rebellions. They threatened to destroy entire worlds if they did not surrender. But their fleets kept disappearing. Their threats rang hollow when human ships appeared in their skies. High Arbiter Veltar, now ancient and desperate, called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The crystal being who had condemned humanity 50 years ago now faced a crisis that threatened everything he had built. "How is this possible?" demanded Council member Zephic, an insect-like creature whose species controlled the galactic trade routes. "Our report said all humans died within the first year." Veltar had no answer. The species he had sent to die on a Hellworld had not only survived, they had become stronger than anything in the galaxy. They were dismantling his empire one world at a time, and there seemed to be nothing he could do to stop them. The final insult came when human ships appeared in Council space itself. Not attacking, just watching. Silent metal shapes that hung in space like sharks waiting for the right moment to strike. Admiral Tony Mitchell broadcast a message to every world in Council territory. His words were simple but carried the weight of 50 years of human suffering. "You tried to murder us." His voice echoed across 1,000 worlds. "You failed. Now we are coming home. And we are bringing justice with us." The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of humanity had begun. The final battle took place above Zentara Prime, the same world where humanity had been condemned 75 years ago. Fleet Admiral Amy Turner stood on the bridge of her flagship, Tartarus Rising, looking down at the planet that had sealed her species' fate when she was just a child. Amy was no longer the frightened 10-year-old who had pressed her face against a transport ship window. She was now the supreme commander of the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. 1,000 human ships surrounded Zentara Prime like angry metal storm clouds. But Amy was not alone. Ships from dozens of freed species flew alongside the human fleet. Korthaki battlecruisers, Zilani stealth fighters, and vessels from 20 other races that had chosen freedom over slavery. The galaxy had united behind humanity's banner of liberation. Admiral, called Captain Mike Stone from his position at the communication station. High Arbiter Veltar is requesting to speak with you. Amy nodded. She had been expecting this. The crystal being who had condemned her people was about to face the consequences of his choices. Veltar's image appeared on the main screen. He looked older, his crystal body dim and cracked. Behind him, Amy could see the other council members huddled together like frightened children. Admiral Turner, Veltar said, his voice no longer carrying the authority it once had. You have proven your point. Humanity has survived and grown strong, but this war serves no purpose. Too many have already died. Amy stared at the alien who had tried to murder her entire species. You are right about one thing. Too many have died. 50 billion humans died in the first 5 years on Tartarus Prime. Millions more died fighting the creatures you sent us to face. And that does not count all the species you enslaved and oppressed. We gave you the chance to evolve or die, Veltar replied weakly. You chose evolution. Why do you now seek revenge? Amy's response was broadcast not just to Veltar, but to every world in the galaxy. This is not revenge. This is justice. You tried to commit genocide against my people. You failed. Now you will face the consequences of your actions. The battle began when the Council fleet opened fire. 3,000 ships against 1,000 seemed like good odds to the alien commanders. They had not learned the lessons that others had. Learned too late. The human ships moved like they were dancing. Enhanced crews reacted to threats before they fully developed. Tartarite-powered weapons cut through enemy shields like they were made of paper, and the freed species fought with the fury of slaves who had finally broken their chains. Captain Roy Bennett commanded the assault on the Council's flagship. His ship, New Haven's Revenge, led a strike force straight through the center of the enemy formation. The aliens tried to stop them, but human ships were simply too fast, too agile, too advanced. Target their command center, Roy ordered his weapons officer. One shot. Make it clean. The beam that struck the Council flagship was precise and devastating. It did not destroy the ship, but it crippled its ability to coordinate the defense. Within minutes, the entire Council fleet was in chaos. But Amy's true masterstroke was not in the battle itself. It was in what happened after the shooting stopped. Council ships surrendered or fled. Amy broadcast another message to the galaxy. This one was different. Instead of threats or demands for surrender, she offered something no one expected. People of the galaxy, she said, her voice reaching billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The old order is dead. The Council, that ruled through fear and oppression, is finished. But we do not seek to replace one tyranny with another. She paused, looking out at the planet below where her fate had been decided so long ago. We offer you the same choice the Council once gave us. You can adapt to a new way of life, or you can leave. But unlike the Council, we will not send you to die. We will give you ships, supplies, and safe passage to find a new home. The reaction was immediate and shocking. Most of the Council species chose to stay. They had grown tired of the old ways, the rigid hierarchies, the constant fear of punishment for thinking differently. They wanted to be part of something new. Dr. Bobby Turner, Amy's younger brother and now humanity's leading expert on galactic politics, began the work of building a new government. The old Council's system of ruling through fear was replaced with something unprecedented, a federation based on merit and cooperation. Every species gets a voice, Bobby explained to the First Galactic Assembly, held on Tartarus Prime itself. But that voice must be earned through contribution, not inherited through ancient bloodlines. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had been enemies for centuries began working together. The Korthaki, once feared as savage warriors, became the galaxy's protectors, using their strength to defend the weak. The Zilani, with their advanced technology, shared their knowledge freely instead of hoarding it, and at the center of it all was humanity, no longer the chaotic upstarts they had once been, but the forged, tempered by hell itself into natural leaders. The former prison world of Tartarus Prime became the new galactic capital. Its impossible cities and towering spires were a monument to human determination. Children from dozens of species played in parks where deadly predators had once hunted. Their parents worked together on projects that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Jake Harrison, now an old man with white hair and scars from a lifetime of struggle, stood in the same amphitheater where humanity had been condemned. But this time he wore the robes of the High Chancellor, elected by representatives from 47 different species. The galaxy once believed that peace meant submission, he told the assembled delegates. They thought that cooperation required the weak to control the strong. They were wrong. He gestured toward the windows where Tartarus Prime's red sun cast its light over the impossible city below. Buildings that could withstand earthquakes reached toward the toxic sky. Gardens bloomed with plants that had been changed by human science. Ships from a dozen worlds landed and took off from spaceports carved from living rock. You banished us to hell thinking it would destroy us, Jake continued. Instead, it made us who we were meant to be. It taught us that strength comes not from oppressing others, but from overcoming impossible challenges. It showed us that true civilization is forged in adversity, tempered by struggle, and strengthened by diversity. The audience was silent, representatives from species that had once been enemies now sitting side by side. In the front row, Amy Turner sat with her own children, human youngsters who had been born in the new galaxy. They would grow up in a universe where cooperation was valued over control, where strength protected the weak instead of exploiting them. Today we begin a new age, Jake announced. An age where every species has the chance to reach its full potential. An age where the strong lift up the weak instead of crushing them. An age where the word impossible has no meaning. He looked out at the faces before him, seeing hope where once there had been only fear. The Galactic Council tried to destroy humanity because they feared what we might become. They were right to be afraid. We have become something they never imagined, a species that turns hell into paradise, enemies into allies, and despair into hope. The applause that followed shook the building, but it was not just the sound of approval. It was the sound of a galaxy celebrating its freedom. Years passed. The new Federation grew stronger as more species joined willingly. Trade flourished between worlds that had once been isolated. Scientific discoveries accelerated as brilliant minds from different species worked together. Art and culture bloomed as beings shared their unique perspectives. The razor wings of Tartarus Prime were tamed and became companions to human children. The deep crawlers were studied and found to be intelligent, eventually becoming allies in the deep mining operations. Even the planet's earthquakes were harnessed, their energy captured and used to power the growing cities. And in the deep archives of New Terra, carefully preserved, were the records of humanity's trial and exile. They were kept not as monuments to past grievances, but as reminders of what could be accomplished when a species refused to give up. Children from many worlds would come to read these records and learn the story of how the galaxy had tried to destroy humanity and instead created its greatest protectors. They would learn that strength without compassion was tyranny, but compassion without strength was useless. Most importantly, they would learn that sometimes the greatest gift you can give to someone is the chance to prove how strong they really are. The age of the forged had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.